Hello and welcome to Long for Truth. My name is Daniel Long. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate you stopping by. And if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that right now. Hit that subscribe button and then click the little bell and you'll be notified every time I upload a video. So the title of this episode is called No Miracles Without Cash, because we're going to be looking at an article from 1909 from the Los Angeles Times that talk about a faith healer that stopped in the middle of his meeting and demanded cash and said that there would be no miracles without it, basically. And that is the title for this episode. Now, this faith healer is a guy named Finis Yoakum. Yoakum's not a very popular or well-known faith healer in the early Pentecostal movement. He wasn't extremely influential on the movement as a whole, but he did have a successful commune, a utopian society that he put together called the Pisgah community. And that was a copy, by the way, of other faith healers, men like John Alexander Dowie, Frank Sanford, and Charles Fox Parham. All three of those men had their own little communities. John Alexander Dowie's Zion City is still in existence today. Not as followers of John Alexander Dowie, but the city that he started. Zion City, Illinois, is still in existence today. Frank Sanford, who started the Shiloh cult, had a community as well. So Finis Yoakum just copied these men and started his own community. And like some of the other Pentecostal leaders of his day, he also copied them in having a prayer tower. Both Frank Sanford and Charles Fox Parham had prayer towers. This is where people would go and they would pray 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just like Mike Bickle's IHOP. So Mike Bickle, he didn't start this whole this whole 24/7 prayer thing. This has happened in the past. There's nothing new under the sun. So Finis Yoakum copied these men. Now, in all fairness, Yoakum, out of all of the other Pentecostal leaders in the past that I researched, Yoakum seemed to be more sincere, at least, than these other guys did. While he was also a shyster, and I think he learned from some of these men, especially Parham, he did some good works. That doesn't mean he wasn't a money-grubbing faith healer like these guys in the past and like these guys that we see in the present are. So let me give you some background about Finis Yoakum. Believe it or not, before Finis Yoakum was a faith healer, Yoakum was a doctor, and he gave up his medical practice for faith healing, believe it or not. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there was more money to be had in faith healing than there was in practicing neurology, but that's what he was. He was a neurologist. Anyway, so he was practicing in Denver, Colorado, and he was getting off of a streetcar one day, the story goes, and he was hit by a man that was drunk driving a buggy, and this left him in very bad shape. And so in order to try to heal, he decided to move to a warmer climate, and so he decided to move to Los Angeles, California, and he gets there and he goes to a faith healing meeting while he is there and is miraculously healed. Now, one of the patterns that I have seen as I've studied the early Pentecostal movement is that these faith healers all seem to have had some dramatic healings of some sort. John G. Lake was healed by John Alexander Dowie, and so John G. Lake becomes a faith healer. Charles Fox Parham was miraculously healed, and so Parham becomes a faith healer. Finis Yoakum was miraculously healed, and so Yoakum becomes a faith healer. And it just seems to be a pattern throughout the early Pentecostal movement. And so soon after that, after his healing, God comes to him in a miraculous way and speaks to him and tells Finis Yoakum, I have no hands and I have no feet and I have no mouth, but you're going to be those for me. And so Yoakum yields to the command of God, and he goes and becomes a faith healer. So that's the story in a nutshell. So anyway, some interesting things that I want to show you here about Finis Yoakum. Let's go ahead and get over to the computer. What's really interesting is that even though Finis Yoakum had this dramatic experience, he had a gold and copper mine that he owned. So he was doing other things on the side as well as faith healing. You can see that. Let me go over here to this. I've got my, as you can see here on the screen, I've got my, all of my articles up that I've saved on Finis. And let's go over here and let me just show you what I'm talking about. This is an advertisement here from 1902. And you can see right here, let me just zoom in. Dr. Finis E. Yoakam's gold and copper. So you can see he had his own milling company there. Let me go back here and I'll show you something else that's very interesting about Finis Yoakam as well. Yoakam and Parham worked together. Now, if you remember, if you've been watching the videos, I did a video on Parham's let me just move this off of the screen. I did a video on Charles Fox Parham and the scam that he did with the alchemist. If you remember, this alchemist was saying that he could turn ordinary rocks into gold. And Parham got involved with a guy and was caught in the scam. And you can check that video out. I'll put it there up on the screen. But Parham also spent some time in the Pisgah community, which was the name of Finis Yoakam's community, the Pisgah community, and spent some time there with Finis Yoakam. And I'll show you that right here. Let me just zoom in. This is, let me just show you the top of the article here so you can see that. I'm sorry about the way that newspapers.com is being. It's kind of slow sometimes. It says a Pentecostal campaign, and this is speaking of Charles Fox Parham. Let's see if I can find his name in the article here. Charles F. Parham is conducting this campaign. So the article's about Parham here. And what I wanted to show you is this little portion right here, talking about Parham. He was also connected with Dr. Yoakam and his great rescue work in that city, speaking of Los Angeles, for about 15 days. So Parham and Yoakam worked together as well. So these guys were connected. Now, something else interesting about Yoakam here. Yoakam had some handkerchief healing going on. What he would do is he would go and in his meetings, he would anoint handkerchiefs. And you see that kind of stuff today. They're called prayer cloths. And he would anoint handkerchiefs and, heal the sick that way. Let me just show you that really quickly. And this is from an article from the Los Angeles Times as well. And this is from March 1908. And the article is called Healer Draws in Pomona. Let me just zoom that in a little bit there. Let's see. Some remarkable cures are now being recounted here. And at 5 o'clock this morning, over a score of local people gathered at the church and sought healing. A special feature of the meeting was the praying over handkerchiefs to be sent to the sick and laid upon their persons. What's interesting about this guy, again, think about it. He was a doctor. Why he left the medical practice was supposedly because God called him and he dropped his lucrative business, his lucrative practice, and he went into faith healing because God told him to do that. But yet he's still got a mining company that he's working with on the side, and he's anointing handkerchiefs and eventually selling them for $5. Yeah, $5. Let me show you that article as well. I'll go back to my clippings over here. And handkerchiefs, let's see. There's a couple of them here. There we go, $5 handkerchiefs. So let me just come over here and pop this up over here. And let's see here. Now, this article is from back in 1970. Along with requests for prayer, food, and clothing came the sale of handkerchiefs anointed by Yoakam at $5 a blessing. And so, as you can see here, the faith healing business must have been much more lucrative than Yoakam's medical practice. All right, and here's the article right here that I wanted to feature in this episode. No miracles without cash. And you can see the subtitle right here. Services halt while money is collected. Folks, much of the early Pentecostal movement was corrupt. And this article right here is just another testimony to that. You can go back and watch some of my older videos. As a matter of fact, I've got an entire playlist on my channel that exposes the early Pentecostal movement. You're going to want to see that. But again, as I said, this article right here is just another testimony to that. Now, check out what happens here in this service. This is what it says. Healing services at Pisgah Home bring out some queer testimony. Dr. Yoakam asserts that everybody should give their all to God's servants, never mind the debts. God loves a cheerful giver seemed to be the motto at Dr. Finis E. Yoakam's Pisgah Home on Hartford Avenue near Avenue 60 yesterday afternoon at his healing and testimony of the healed services. Collection boxes were placed on the grounds about the home and in the tabernacle, and an extra large one was on the platform where Dr. Yoakam and his assistants performed their miracles. A large audience was present, but the sight alone of the collection boxes did not draw the dollars quite fast enough for the doctor, so the testimony services was stopped long enough for him to tell how necessary it was for one to give away all his money before entering the kingdom of heaven. Wow, talk about a works-oriented gospel here. Dr. Yoakam said that he performed such miracles as mentioned in the Bible, but the 1/10 of the person's income for the purposes of the Lord was entirely too small, and that everyone should give all their money to God's servants, or rather, servant. After his talk, the large box was placed on the front of the platform with the simple statement that there were several more at hand should the one not prove large enough to hold all. This admonition opened the purses of many, and soon the space around the platform was crowded with cheerful givers, many of whom looked as though they needed their money at home. While the box was being filled, the doctor and the staff sang "On to," how ironic, huh? "On to Zion," and other songs telling the givers what their reward will be. Speaking to his point, Dr. Yoakam said, "If you have a debt to pay, do not hoard your money in trying to pay it and be a tightwad, but give it for God's work, and he will find a way for you to get along." The principal testimony of healing was a letter from a woman whom Dr. Yoakam said he healed instantly last week in Kansas. Her name was not given, nor was the name of her home in Kansas. And that's just one of the ways how these faith healers worked, false testimonies. Her name was not given, nor was the name of her home in Kansas. Dr. Yoakam does not pay any attention to names, and the inmates of the home are each known by their first name. In telling of the cure, he said that he prayed for the healing of the woman at 4:45 o'clock last Sunday morning, and according to a letter he had, she was healed instantly. Miss Johnson was another woman that was brought back to life by prayers. She said that when taken to the home, she was completely paralyzed from the shoulders to the feet, and that after 7 weeks of prayer, she was in perfect condition. And again, guys, and I've said this before, when the apostles healed, it was instant. When Jesus healed, it was instant. They didn't have to wait weeks, and they didn't have to go to prayer rooms, and they didn't have to go to prayer homes. The apostles just laid their hands on the people that were sick, and they were healed. Jesus just laid his hands on the people that were sick, and they were healed. It was an instantaneous thing. It wasn't like what you're seeing what you're seeing now with the healing rooms and the prayer rooms in the past. It just wasn't. Anyway, she said that when taken to the home, she was completely paralyzed from the shoulders to the feet, and that after 7 weeks of prayer, she was in perfect condition. She also said that she had a cancer that weighed 10 pounds and that 6 different physicians of Los Angeles had told her that she couldn't be cured. During the testimony, an aged blind man became interested. Now, check this out. This is what they do. This blind man that you're getting ready to hear about was really blind. He wasn't a fake testimony like some of these others were. This man was actually blind. Watch what Yoakam does here. During the testimony, an aged blind man became interested and, hobbling toward the platform, asked to be healed. The doctor thought at first that the man was going to give testimony, and when he found that it was a case to be healed, hurriedly had the man seated again with the statement that he had not the time during the meeting, but would see the patient privately. Would Jesus or any of his apostles or anyone who had a genuine gift of healing ever have done that? Would they ever sent the person back? No, they would have put their hands on him and healed him. That just shows you these men were not genuine, and they're not genuine today. These men and women who call themselves faith healers, who call themselves prophets, they're fakes. That's what they are. They were back then, and they are today. He told him that he had not time during the meeting, but would see the patient privately. A lady said that the devil had gotten a hold of her and sprained her ankle, giving much pain. She limped to the platform and asked to be healed. The doctor placed his hands on her head. An assistant took hold of one hand, another held the other, and a third hurriedly grabbed the injured ankle. Each muttered a few words, and the victim was told to walk back to her seat. She took a step, starting to limp, when the sharp voice of the doctor stopped her. "Don't limp," he commanded. "Walk straight." She grated her teeth and took a few steps in an endeavor to walk straight, but did not succeed. Several men stated that Dr. Yoakam had cured them of the drink and tobacco habits, and that after praying with him, they had no desire for drink and tobacco. One said that the smell of either whiskey or tobacco was repugnant. One lady became so excited in praising the cures that she jumped up and down shouting joyfully, and it was with difficulty that she was stopped. So, folks, as you can see, these faith healers, they don't care about you. They care about your money, yeah. They care about what's in your wallet, but they don't care about you.